Hello, and welcome to day 3 of the North Carolina State Council's virtual conference. My name is Roger Green, and I'm your host. I'm here to help you through this virtual experience. I'm so honored and so excited to introduce today's presenter. This speaker is an amazing woman of God. Listen, you can't say Christian education in the Pentecostal assemblies of the world and not mention Sister Betty Thomas. Sister Betty Thomas, affectionately known as Aunt Betty, is a Christian education servant. She does amazing work throughout the international ranks in Christian education. Let me tell you a little bit about Sister Betty Thomas. Sister Betty Thomas attended college at North Carolina Central University, and upon completion of her degree, she began to work at the United States Social Security Office and Department, and she worked there up until her retirement, where she served in various managerial and leadership capacities. She is now serving an international position in Christian education, as well as the superintendent here at the North Carolina State Council. Now, without further ado, I present to you Sister Betty Thomas.
Praise the Lord, everybody. I welcome you to the North Carolina State Council, where our diocesan is the Honorable Bishop Maren E. Wright Sr., our chairman is Suffragan Bishop Maxie Dobson, and our vice chairman is Suffragan Bishop Freddie Solomon. My name is Sister Betty Thomas, and I currently serve as the superintendent of the North Carolina State Council. So again, I welcome you, and I just hope today, just for these few minutes that we're going to have together, that we can pull some nuggets and some words of encouragement that will help us to hold on during this very uncertain time. Now, our theme, I think most people know already, and especially if you heard the Bible class, the light is still on at the church. Now, when you first look at this theme, what comes to mind? Let me answer that for you. I think it would be correct if I said about 50% of us thought of a physical building, a church with walls, stained windows, a back door, a front door, and you know it would have a kitchen. It was our place of worship. On the other hand, I think if you went straight to our supporting scriptures, from a biblical standpoint, you would immediately know the church referred to you and I as believers. God no longer, and I think we all know this, so whatever I'm saying, don't think of it as I'm telling you something new, but we're just kind of emphasizing and re-emphasizing what is happening in our world today. We know that God no longer dwells in a building made with hands, but he lives where? He lives in us. Those of us who are baptized and filled with the Holy Ghost, according to Acts 2:38, and there are other scriptures, but I'm going to use that as my base. Now, both churches have one thing in common, that physical church and the church that lives in us. When their lights are on, they both send a message of hope and courage. Can you remember, it have to be a long time ago, but when you had problems, you were down, you were out, and you were figuring, Lord, what am I going to do? You just needed some fellowship and a word. You would rush to the house of the Lord. Just remember, that light that was on at the church, and when you got near the church and you saw the lights, you got excited, all right? But in the absence of that physical church, you and I we have the responsibility of letting our light so shine. Now, we have one word with the same spelling, same pronunciation, but they have totally different meanings. Remember, when we were in school, we call those words antonyms. I don't know what they call them now, but the words were spelled exactly the same, they pronounced them the same, but they had totally different meanings. So we have the church, a physical building, dwelling, and we have the church, the body of Christ. And the only way that we can determine which church our theme refers to, the light is still on the church, at the church, we have to go to our scriptures and read Acts 13 and 47. And just a little bit of that, I'll say, I have made you a light of the Gentiles, that you may bring salvation to the ends of the earth. That's us. Now, this brings me to the importance of Christian education. Our students of all ages, they got to learn how to not only repeat the word, but when they come into crisis or they come into things that they just have no idea, even us as adults, we have to know how to apply God's words in good times, in bad times, in times of trouble, in times of peace, and certainly now in the time of uncertainty. Now, honestly, can you imagine how you would respond to the pandemic, the COVID-19, if you didn't have a relationship with God and you weren't familiar with His Word and His promises? Think about it. Sometimes when I'm at home, I have to just think, trust in the Lord and do good. Sometimes I have to remember, many are the afflictions of the righteous, because I look at this COVID-19 as an affliction, but the Lord delivers them out of them all. It has to be, the word has to be in me. So I can say that the COVID-19 caught many of us off guard. Can I say that again? It caught us off guard. And in the majority of instances, it shut down our churches and church ministries. And of course, that included our Sunday schools. I think that's been about 5 to 6 months ago. It's been a long time already. Now, one thing I do know, it wasn't the desire of the Sunday school staff not to hold Sunday school, but they were not knowledgeable of what other media methods could be used to continue to reach their students. And for me, and sometimes we do have to, as adults, there are things we have to say too, we have to admit. For years, many of my students suggested that we use computers, have them installed in our Sunday schools. And you know what? It wouldn't have been any trouble because our bishop, our pastor, Pastor Wright, would have actually provided those computers. But Sister Betty, a baby boomer, I had no idea how that would work. I didn't know where to start. So you know what? We just kept on teaching the same old way. Now, what I have since learned is that students know more about technology than most adults. And I guess I can take a moment here and thank the students for their continued efforts to come to Sunday school. And they never used the word bored, but they kind of looked a little strange, but they came and they participated. So that, Sister Betty, applaud them. And I have to also thank the parents for making certain that their students, their children, kept coming to Sunday school. There are times now when these children get 13 or 14, they tell their parents they're not going to church anymore. Well, I think we all grew up in a house that just didn't happen. So I want to thank the parents of Great Emmanuel and all the parents in our different churches for continuously encouraging our children to come to church. Now, for the Sunday schools who, prior to the pandemic, had other forms of technology, they had Zoom, they had Facebook, they had internet, they continued to prosper. They continued to communicate with their students. It is the other churches that had no recourse that things had to shut down, right? Now, as a teacher and as a Sunday school staffer, believe me, just like in Exodus and in Acts, we have to stretch out our rod. Now, what is that? Stretch out the rod. We have to go wherever it's necessary, go to whomever is necessary to find ways of reaching our students. It is okay if you call another church, another superintendent to find out, well, what are you doing and how is it working? For some reason, we just kind of sit in our own little corners in our own churches and just try to get by. But it is time now for us to stretch out and ask others, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Because I want to use that same method if I can. Now, I can tell you this, through this period of quarantine, Sister Betty Thomas, I've been able to see a lot of my shortcomings, how I like to do things, how I accept others' suggestions, but I've really learned now how to closely listen to God and His instructions to me. When you're home by yourself and you're quarantined, you can look at the TV, MSNBC, That's my favorite. And CNN, you can look at all of that. Or what you can do, what we do at Greater Emmanuel, our bishop, since the pandemic, has held noonday Bible classes. And I am telling you, there are some things that he has said, I know they're true, but I just never paid it much attention. But so now that I'm quiet and that, so the quarantine really, if you think about it, it's good. I think sometimes when we think about the disciples that were put in quarantine, oh my goodness, John on the Isle of Patmos. I mean, really, that was time for them to hear God. So take this time to hear and to listen. Some things you may not even agree with, and when I say not agree with, you're not disagreeing with God, but you go, oh, ouch, that hurts. But that's what he's telling us. And I'm going to share with you 2 things God has shared with me during this quarantine, and it sticks with me. I almost hear it daily, okay? He shared 2 things with me. And it is, Betty, stand still. Betty, stand still. And the other one is, Betty, trust me. Betty, trust me. Now, the stand still kind of comes a little easier because sometimes when I get anxious, I want to do something, I want to call somebody, I want to say something, I can do that. But the trust him, when you're looking at the situation and you're hearing the news about the increase in the pandemic, you just sort of feel like, oh Lord, well, I know you're in control, but what he wants me to do is to relax and trust him. All right, so, but I just wanted to let you know that. Because sometimes as adults and as teachers, we don't think that I can't say we don't think he talks to us, but he talks to us, he speaks to us, and we have to listen, all right? Now, when Jesus charged each one of us to carry out the Great Commission, I don't recall him saying anywhere, now if things get rough and tough, I want you to just hold back, pull back until things get better. He said, no, go. He left us with clear instructions. Teachers, go forth and spread the gospel to all nations. And that's in Matthew 28, 16 and 20, and I know you know that. But he didn't say, when he said for us to go and spread the gospel, he didn't say it was going to be easy. He didn't say anything. He just gave the command to go. And that's how I'm feeling about this COVID-19. There is a charge to continue and not to stop. Now, although we're quarantined and we're limited in our mobility, as Christian educators, we still have the responsibility of reaching out to our students. And so we can do that easily. We can call them, we can text them, we can email them, or use free conference calling. Now, some students, they already have Zoom. I didn't know about Zoom until recently, and it's all right because you know what? I'm taking classes on how to operate Zoom because I want to know. And you can also do this. You can form a work group of young people who have technical skills. And believe me, these students can help you. And they want to help. They want to be involved, and that also keeps them involved in the ministry. So think about that. You know yourself. There's some 3rd, 4th graders that know a lot about technology, more than me, and I'm not ashamed to say it. It's just that this is the era that they're in. Now, the last thing I wanted to say to our teachers and our superintendents, if there is a second wave of the COVID-19, how will your Department of Christian Education or Sunday School be better prepared? Let me say it again. If there's a second wave, and they are talking about a second wave, how will your Department of Christian Education or Sunday School be better prepared? Now, to all those who are listening, I also want to leave this question with you. Will you, even though we're out of church, we're out of the physical building, will you remain faithful when it is time for us to go back to church? You know, I'm praying that everybody's going to be excited, but I do know that a lot of people are getting very comfortable with that being at home. All right, but are we going to be faithful and go back, return to our house of worship, and go back with a spirit of gladness? I think, you know, that old saying, you don't miss your water until the well runs dry. Well, I tell you, I miss this physical church. I miss the fellowship and being with the saints and the word as it comes forth. And I'm going to ask you this too, and I hope this is all right, and I think it is. Will you remain faithful? Whether we're in the physical building or not yet back, will you remain faithful, committed, and loyal by continuing to support your church with your tithes and your offering? A lot of people may even think, you know what, we're not at church. I don't really need, but that's a commandment from God that we do our tithes and our offering. So it doesn't stop. Some things just don't stop. So just mull that over in your minds. Will I continue to be supportive of my church? And then, as the last point that I'd like to make, what spiritual lesson, and that's also with an S, have you learned from the COVID-19 pandemic? What spiritual lesson, and that's something for you to take home and to think about. So I want to thank you for your minutes, your time that you've listened. I hope that something has been said that will encourage you to hold on and to know that in God's time, everything will be all right. But we must wait on Him. We must wait on Him. We must wait on Him. And the way that we wait on Him is going to make a real big difference. And I would be remiss if I did not say to you that I give special thanks to my friend Elder Sean Bradley out of Region 5 for sharing parts of his presentation with me. That's what we do sometimes across the country with Christian education. We share. Nobody really comes up with every little point on their own. Maybe they do, maybe some do. But we share as Christian educators. So, with that, I'd like to leave with you. The light is still on at the church.
Imagine this bucket of water is your financial situation. Each one of us will face different choices concerning our finances throughout our lives. Some of us may be struggling to keep our heads above water as we face debt at every turn. Others may be right on the line with no margin for error. And still others may have even managed to put some money into savings. Oftentimes we allow these financial situations to order our giving for us. We give when we have plenty and hold back when times are tough. The book of Proverbs gives us a powerful truth when we view our giving based upon our bank statements. Proverbs 11:24 says that if we withhold what we should give, we will only suffer more want. Our first inclination when we hear this is to say that it cannot be true, that if we hang on to all our money, we will have that much more money to pay our bills. But the Bible doesn't concede this point. In fact, it tells us that only when we give freely, not hoarding our money, will we grow richer. By giving, we will end up with plenty, and if we try and keep it all, we end up not having what we need. What a paradox, and what a powerful motivation to give at the same time. Do you trust this promise? Do you believe that God rewards those who give in any circumstance? This is the one area where God tells us to test Him, and it's the one area very few of us actually do. We test His mercy as we run off like the prodigal son, only to find that He welcomes us back with open arms when we repent. And we are willing to test His patience with our habitual sins, again to find that He is slow to anger. So why not test His generosity and see if He does not fulfill our every need just as He promises?
Hey there. I hope that you've enjoyed this broadcast so far. We wanted to take a brief moment to give you an opportunity to know that you can participate in the North Carolina State Council Virtual Council through your giving. Listen, the North Carolina State Council solely survives on the grace of God and the generous contributions of its supporters. So our Assistant Treasurer, Minister Priscilla Dobson, is going to come forth and tell you 3 ways that you can give.
During our virtual council, you have 3 options for giving. The first option is online via our website at www.ncstatecouncil.com. At the top of the homepage, click the online giving link. You will be directed to our online giving page. or you will see a yellow donate button. Click this button and you will be directed to our PayPal page. You may then enter the amount you would like to give and use the drop-down menu to select your giving category. The second option is to use the Cash App application, which must be downloaded to your phone or other device. The last option is to call and submit your contributions over the phone. To use this option, please call 1-855-588-0400. Again, 1-855-588-0400. And you will then be directed to a member of the NCSC Treasurer staff. We thank you in advance for your monetary support of the North Carolina State Council.